Thanks for everyone for joining us again today with Eco Paso. Again, this is part of our National Drive Electric Week 2020 virtual speaker series. So we did plan on meeting again this year for our second annual event, but the pandemic wouldn't allow it. So what we've done is we've put together a variety of EV owners, enthusiasts, people that really know the industry, the market, or just drive one every day maybe. And so throughout the week and all the way through Sunday, we're going to have individuals joining us, kind of giving us their personal story, what they've researched, the good, the bad, the in between, what they like about EVs. And today we have Frank Pedroza, and he is joining us here in El Paso, Texas. And I'll let him sort of take over the series today and answer any questions you guys may have.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hello, my name is Frank Pedroza. I did prepare something for us to see. Just because I feel like the biggest thing stopping from people from getting a EV is just education. Like they don't know, they don't understand. It's not because they don't want to. It's just because they don't know where to find it. So I wanted to share something. If you can enable me to share screen.
Yeah, let's see. How do I do that? It's not giving you the option, huh?
No, it says I can't because it's disabled.
It's disabled, really?
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, yeah. A little bit about me. I want to go through some couple things, just to, who I am. I'm not just talking because of whatever reason. I'm a local detailer. I own a small business here. So I work on many cars, many EVs. So I get to see, what's out there as far as electric vehicles and ICE vehicles. And I've owned 3 electric vehicles. I've had a Tesla Model 3, which is in the picture down below. I've also had a Volkswagen e-Golf, and my wife has a Nissan Leaf. And we've put probably about 50,000 miles between all of them. So we've driven them quite a bit.
That's great.
And then I'm really into investing on electric vehicles. I think that's the way of the future. So I do spend a lot of time, researching about them, 10 to 15 hours a week, just reading articles, watching videos, learning more and more. So that's why I feel like I'm qualified more or less to talk about this.
Yes, that's why we're having you. It's good to hear.
So, yeah, I just want to talk about the big 5 myths I think are out there regarding, electric vehicles. And so a lot of people say that they're not that green because it costs carbon emissions to make them. And while yes, that's true, over the lifetime of the vehicle, it's going to be a lot less than the carbon emissions of a regular vehicle. So it is greener regardless, if you include the production of it or not.
Absolutely. Plus, you see a lot of car manufacturing and manufacturing in general, solar powering or wind powering their facilities nowadays as well.
Yeah, so it's getting less and less emissions. And a big question I've heard from people that ask me, like, well, why not just make the engine the ICE engine more efficient? And that's just because you can't. Like, there's nothing more that we can do. They're already near this highest efficiency they can be, which is about 30%. So, like, when you fill up your gas car, only 30% of the gas gets used for your car. The rest is just heat from the explosions inside the engine. Like, it's just lost. So they're super, super inefficient. Whereas electricity in the battery, 90% of that will go to your car and the rest is lost as heat. So it's a big difference. And then if you're like me, I have solar panels in my house, then it's even greener, because there's no electric company, powering my car. It's my solar panels powering my car.
That's awesome. How long have you had solar panels on your house?
Right after we moved in, I want to say 4 years now, 3 or 4 years.
4 years? Nice. How many panels are up there?
About a dozen.
About a dozen? Nice. Yeah, that's the one, like I said, right? You can power your home to power your car.
Yeah.
You can power your power plant of your manufacturing facility to power your car, all the way to the utility using solar. So yeah, no, that's really cool to kind of show all the way to the end user.
I really am a big supporter of solar. Not because I'm a super green person, but because it saves money.
Yeah, the financial returns are a no-brainer with solar, in my opinion.
Let's see. And then this is a very common thing. Like on Facebook, I always see people posting about maintenance of them, and it's not bad because there's a lot less parts in an electric vehicle. Like if you look at the engine of an ICE vehicle, it's like 2,000 parts moving around. And the more moving parts you have, the more things are gonna brush together and eventually erode and just fail. And there's 2,000 of those parts moving. Sooner or later, something's gonna happen to at least one of them. Whereas in an electric motor, it's only 20 parts, more or less.
Wow.
It's a small number.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I was looking up some consumer reports, and just this month, or not this month, last month, the consumer report says that electric vehicle owners are going to save about almost $5,000 over the course of the vehicle just in maintenance costs alone.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard that pretty consistently from all the EV owners I've spoken to.
Yeah, I haven't done anything to my car yet, and I've had it a little over a year now. My Tesla, and haven't had anything done to it. And then another big complaint or question I hear is about the battery. Like, what if I need to replace it? And then my response is, what if you need to replace your engine in your car? That's your most expensive thing.
Yeah.
Like the battery right now, they're about 5,500, whereas a car is, 6,000 to 9,000 for the engine. But the thing to keep in mind is that this mass production of electric vehicles is still new. So it's going to get cheaper. It's going to get better. So maybe in 5 years, instead of 5,500, it's, 4,000 or 3,000.
Yep. That's the idea. That's what happened to the solar industry.
Yeah.
You were, buying solar at $8 a watt. Now you can buy it for $3 a watt, right? So.
Yeah. And I mean, the engine has been around, 100 years, and it's still super expensive to replace. So that's not going to get any cheaper anytime soon.
That's true.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got going on here. Safety. This is important for me. Like I have kids, so the safety is always important to me. As far as, like that low center of gravity, because of how all the batteries are at the bottom, all that weight, that makes the rollover chance, far less likely. And I put a little clip in here. Let's see if we can watch it real quick. Move this. Minimize that. There we go.
Nice.
And that's the Model X. They're doing a rollover test on it. And as you'll see, like even with the very extreme example, it doesn't roll over
because it still wants to come back. Wow.
Yeah. That low center of gravity, you can't beat it. There's nothing to beat about it,
Yeah, that's an awesome video. I've never seen that one.
And this is several years ago, so I'm sure they've made improvements since then.
Sure.
Yeah, and the Model 3, which is a pretty good car. It's been the safest car ever tested by NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And it's no surprise that an electric vehicle is the safest car ever tested.
Yeah, that is an extremely good point, right? Your safety, if you've got kids, a spouse, a friend, a family member, I don't think people think about that as often as they do price.
Yeah, because I mean, I have kids, so I thought that was my first thought, safety.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I saw in the headlines a lot in researching is fires, and I think they're overblown because the same administration, NHTSA, says that electric vehicles are somewhat comparable or less slightly to those than a gas or diesel. So I mean, that's no different. There's over 150 vehicle fires per day, so only a small percentage of those are actually EVs. They just get the spotlight because they're new.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah. And then I guess for people that are super interested in performance, that's not me, but I know some people are, the acceleration is, ridiculous for the amount of money you're spending. You're getting a lot of power and acceleration from that. 0 to 60 in almost 2.5 seconds. That's crazy for under $100,000.
Yeah, I think the common misinformation is everyone just wants to talk about, horsepower. I've got a 400 horsepower, 500 horsepower, but that doesn't really mean much when you have instant torque from a battery.
Yeah. Yeah, that instant power is so different. It's like riding a roller coaster, just immediate takeoff.
Yeah, I think someone said it about a golf cart. Even when you get in on a golf cart, it still pushes you back right when you hit the gas.
Yeah.
Or the battery, I guess you could say. So.
Yeah, and the one thing that they're making next year is that that new Tesla car which is going to go 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, and that's ridiculous. Like
Wow.
that's the fastest car that's ever made. You know, like with either engine or electric, whatever. Like production car, that's huge.
Yeah. So all the Corvette owners and Porsche owners start buying EVs.
Yeah, and it's not even that expensive. I think it was like 140. And I mean, for a supercar, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next one. There we go. The total cost of ownership. This is the thing that I think most people overlook because they just see the sticker price and think, wow, that's a lot of money. And I think we got to think about the whole thing because you're gonna have this car for about 5 to 10 years, depending on your loan. So you got to think about all the money over time.
Yeah, I'm glad you put some numbers down because that's what I was talking about early in the week, right? You can buy a cheap house that's inefficient. You can buy a cheap car that's inefficient, right? And it's all about all your spending, whether it's tires, replacement of parts, gas. And I think that's what people don't really realize is, especially if you're charging at work or a friend's house or out in the public for free, now you're not only, cutting out gas, but you're cutting out even your electricity to refuel your battery, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's super important because people could buy a $25,000 car that's much more expensive than a $35,000 car when it comes to the total life cycle of owning.
Yes, exactly. I mean, now there's so many more electric vehicles coming up. Like there's Volkswagen has a bunch of good ones coming out. Chevy's supposed to have some more coming out. There's a new company I just read about. They're making a $20,000 car. And, after the incentives, because they're a brand new company, that comes down to $13,000. I mean,
wow,
you can't get a Corolla or something, a Civic that cheap,
especially brand new, right?
Yeah. So
and that's the other thing. They almost sort of come decked out because it's all electronic, right? So you get the flat screens and the music and the connecting to your phone and all the frills sort of built into an electric car. Whereas maybe you get a base model regular ICE car and doesn't have anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And people, I think, need to just think about the total cost over 5 years because Clean Technica did like a simulation of the cars, like the Tesla Model 3 and all the 2 other cars in their class in that same, $37,000 range. And over 5 years, if you're talking about tires and gas and insurance, basically maintenance, everything included with the car, including your loan, over 5 years, you're looking to pay about $20,000 more with another car in the same class.
Yeah, that's significant. That's what people need to hear, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even with comparisons to more entry level cars, they're about the same. You're still gonna spend about $30,000 after you do all your maintenance and everything. They will even out over time, even with the cheaper cars. Of a $20,000 sticker, the maintenance over time is gonna make it about the same price after 5 years.
Yeah, you got to think about that monthly operating cost, right? Much cheaper for an EV. Yeah, that's super important because I think, to me, from what I hear, at least anecdotally, when I'm out in the market, I hear always it comes down to money first and foremost is the first question. It's too expensive, and then you have to educate people. You can buy them for used Chevy Volt for 10, 15 grand or more. But I think that's like the first big thing. But then being able to break down also what it costs per month. And really being able to showcase to people it's not just gas. There's so many moving parts, all the different fluids. It costs $50 to $100 for an oil change nowadays if you go out in the public and do it instead of doing it yourself. So I think that's a super, super important piece. And then usually it comes down to performance and options, which we all know are usually always there.
Yeah.
But money seems to be the big thing, and this is a good way to shoot down that misconception. I think it's 20 years ago thinking, right? We got to change the thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Just look at the big picture, I think.
Yeah.
And EP Electric has a program too. Many people don't know about it, but they do have EV incentives. If you charge off-peak hours and install a little meter, you're paying 2 cents a kilowatt, which is regularly we pay 12 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a really, really strong program. Seems like they're adopting it in their fleet. And it seems like they're trying to educate car dealerships, it sounded like, which is really good. I mean, you never heard of a utility power plant trying to educate car dealers how to sell cars.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like it kind of shocked me, but didn't surprise me once I thought about it. It made total sense. But it was really nice to hear that El Paso Electric was making inroads and their special rate. It sounded like the only roadblock could be an expensive line from the transformer to your house if your house isn't already built with it. So there could be like a $3,000 upgrade, but if your house comes with it and the line is already there, it sounded like it was a no-brainer. But I know that some houses had to pay out of pocket to upgrade to the transformer because their home wasn't equipped with it for that special meter. And then there could be a $2,000 to $3,000 cost, but that's not for all homes. It's typically probably older homes. But beyond that, 2 cents a kilowatt hour versus 12 is a no-brainer, right? Especially compared to the cost of gas when it comes to cost per mile.
Yeah, that's I did a comparison because I mean, on average, people drive 1,000 miles per month before the pandemic, of course. And
Exactly.
The closest place to me was a Circle K, and they're doing $2.15 a gallon. Yeah, 1,000 miles a month, that's like $86 versus if you take out the meter fee, you're paying $6 a month in electricity.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there is a meter fee with the separate meter for your EV.
Yeah. There's a $10 fee.
$10 fee out of the gate, but because of the cost per kilowatt hour, it ends up that's cool. I didn't know there was a separate meter fee, but that makes sense for their rate.
Yeah, you're gonna pay more for the meter than you will for electricity.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's also really good to know. That was one little detail I hadn't heard yet.
Yeah, and for me, my last ICE car was a Chrysler 300, and that thing used to kill me on gas. I was filling up, $80 every time, every week, and spending more on gas than insurance. So that's why I bought that Volkswagen. So it was time to change.
Nice. Do you prefer any one of your three vehicles? If you could only pick one of the three that you've had, would you keep your Tesla, or do you think they're all fairly comparable in terms of value, power, and what you needed out of the car?
I don't think they're comparable. I think there's a clear hierarchy of which one's best and which one's second and which one's the third.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
and would you say Tesla would probably come at the top for you?
Yes. Yeah, Tesla's definitely at the top. Just because I feel like even though it was a bit more money, I felt like I got more for my money. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and the Leaf, it felt like it was like buying a car. It didn't feel like we got a great deal or a bad deal. I just felt like okay.
Just felt like a car versus. It sounds like Tesla is more of an experience.
Yeah, definitely. And then the Volkswagen, I got that used, and that was my first one, and I loved it. It just the range wasn't there for me. It was only 100 miles.
Wow. Okay. And your current Tesla, what kind of mileage are you getting out of every charge?
325. So that's a huge jump for me. It was
325. Wow. That's at 100% battery.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And do you normally charge all the way, or do you go to like 80, 90%?
About 80%. And I only charge, at least before the pandemic, I would only charge like maybe every few daes.
Nice.
Like every few days. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. That's really nice to hear.
Let's see. And the final thing that I think for me, when people ask me, the most important thing they ask is about range charging and traveling. And my response always kind of freaks them out. I say that there's more charge stations than gas stations. It's like, what do you mean? And I say, does your house have an outlet? Does your friend's house have an outlet? Does your work have an outlet?
That's true.
Because that's a charging station. You can plug it in.
That is true. And if you were in a pinch and someone didn't have a Tesla charger, could you plug it into a regular outlet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Teslas come with an adapter.
Nice. Okay, as long as you have the adapter, then you can just use a regular plug that's much slower, but you can still plug in.
Yeah. Yeah,
nice.
Definitely. And in my car, and in all three of our EVs, we've always kept an extension cord in there. And we've never needed it.
Nice. Okay, so instead of a battery, jumping a battery with those cables, you can just have a 100-foot extension cord.
Yeah, that's really good. And with these big charging stations, they're really only necessary if you're traveling. I mean,
sure.
I've never used them outside of traveling.
Yeah, the fast chargers.
and they're being built all the time. Right now, there's like 80,000 in the United States, and then Biden proposed that they're going to make 500,000 more. So
Wow,
there's a lot coming.
that's awesome.
And
I think once you start to see them at gas stations, it'll be nice, right? Because right now they don't seem. They might be at some gas stations, but it seems like they're at more unusual spots. Not always a gas station, like a grocery store or
yeah,
a Rudy's barbecue or a hotel or somewhere random. It seems like.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely a bit more spread out. But Paso isn't the best yet with all the charging stations, but they're growing. They're growing little by little.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Eco El Paso has a set of links that we got from El Paso Electric's site that shows their network, which we highly encourage people to check out because there is a network, and El Paso Electric is using their own network as well for their own cars. So I think that's one thing people need to take a look at when you do have a chance. Check out the charging station network on El Paso Electric site or the Eco El Paso site. I think that'll sort of maybe be a little more eye opening for some people that didn't know that it exists.
Yeah, that's really good. And some manufacturers have incentives too, like Volkswagen, their new ID cars, the electric vehicles. I really like them. Like if I didn't already have one, I would consider getting one. And they're having a bonus right now where if you get one, you get 3 years of free charging.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
nice.
And then,
Wow, that's really nice.
yeah. And then some people say, like running out of charge, what happens, or like, and I tell them, you're waking up to a full tank every day. And I always tell them, if you're the kind of person that runs out of gas, you're the same kind of person that runs out of charge.
That's a
It's
point that
uh,
I'll make.
it's not. I don't think it's either gas or electric that made like you're getting out of gas. It's the
It's
person.
personality type.
Yeah, not planning a little bit.
Yeah. So if you're an EV owner, maybe you don't let it get down to empty like you would your gas tank.
Yeah, I think the lowest I usually go is like 10%, and that's
Nice.
like I think that was only like an emergency. Like I had to go somewhere and I forgot to charge. Like, and even then it was no
It's
big
still
deal. I still
fine.
had plenty of range to go to the east side and back.
And does it damage it to go all the way down to zero?
If you go all the way down to zero, I've read that it does damage it, but I mean, you have to plan to go down to zero. Like it doesn't just kind of happen.
Sure. So in all the years that you've been, doing this, it's never happened to you.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a really good point too.
Or my wife. I mean, we don't have a gas car in the family anymore.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and so we both have electric vehicles for about 2 years now, I think, and we've never had an issue with charging or with running out or traveling. It's never been an issue.
That's awesome. I think that's probably reassuring, especially to people with families or just your average user, right? Who doesn't know that, right?
And I have 3 kids, so I mean, we make it work.
It's nice. Yeah, you're cutting your kids' carbon footprint so early in their life. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I like to talk about the different ranges because I think that's people need to understand what their intention of those ranges are. So with that 100-mile range, that was my Volkswagen. I wouldn't try to travel with it, just only city use. Because I mean, your 100 miles is like in a best case scenario. I wouldn't want to push it.
Sure.
Because if you're using the heater or the air conditioning, it does take a little bit on it.
Sure.
But if you're just going to use it for the city, like if you're a college student or a high school student, like that's perfect because you don't need to go anywhere.
Yeah. Plus, probably your average driver probably doesn't drive 100 miles a day. They probably drive 20 or 40, maybe 50. But yeah, so it sounds like even the lowest end mileage EV could still be very, very economical for your average driver.
Yeah, definitely. When I used to have the Volkswagen, I live on the west side. I could drive to the far east and back, and then some, and still have charged up with that 100-mile range.
Nice.
I mean, there's plenty you can do with that, but I would say if you want like a car that's going to replace, you're not going to have any more gas cars, you should at least get 200-mile range.
Okay.
For traveling, because I think with 200 miles you can travel easily. You just got to plan it a little bit.
Yeah, you can get to Ruidoso or Cloudcroft from El Paso with that kind of mileage.
And just plan it out. You don't need to stress about it. Just take 10 minutes. Okay, where am I going to charge? Over there, on the way back, and done.
Nice.
And then with the 300 mile plus, like You can live life as normal.
How far have you gone on one charge? Have you gone the 300 miles yet?
No, I usually just charge every time I see one, but I had in city driving, I've gone a whole week without charging just because I was lazy.
Yeah.
And I was using it every day. Just I wasn't charging just because I don't want to move my wife's car out of the garage.
Yeah, and that's awesome because now your solar panels are powering more of your house than your car.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is just I guess some opinions because everything else before was all facts. Like that stuff you can just Google and fact check anytime. And the last couple things is my opinion. I think you know electric vehicles are going to do ice vehicles is what smartphones did to dumb phones. Before Apple, everyone had the flip phones. The coolest thing you could do was take a picture, and then Apple came out, and then it was game over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can still find a dumb phone, but there's a
Absolutely.
place for it, and they're hard to find.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
And I think that's the way it's going to be with ice vehicles. Maybe in 20 years, they're going to still exist, but they're going to have a specific purpose and more difficult to find.
Yeah, it's going to be nice. You're going to pull up in your driveway and your lights are going to turn on in your house and your garage door is going to open up without touching anything. And, it's going to be all integrated to your phone and to your car and to your smart house. It's sort of like, from your doorbell to your garage door, it's all going to be sort of integrated, it seems like. At least it seems like that's where it's going.
Yeah, I think so. I really do.
Which you can actually already do that now. It just takes more devices to do it. But
Yeah. And there's a ton of support from all the governments worldwide. I mean, the United States is behind, but there's still support. Both candidates want to push EVs. Europe and China are huge on EVs, so we're trying to catch up to that.
I think the U.S. has a lot of room to grow, which is good, right? That could mean jobs and buying options and cheaper products. So
Yeah, definitely. I don't. Oh, now I can see them. Let's see. I'm not able to see the chat. There we go. Let's see. Is there an increase in saving energy, like daily? Yeah, like with me, we never noticed an increase in our electric bill because we had panels, and then later on we got the
2 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah, so we never noticed an increase in electricity. The
So
only time it increases.
At 2 cents a kilowatt hour, what is if you go in, let's say 10% battery and you charge it fully, are we talking a few dollars to charge your car?
Probably less. Like my battery is only 75 kilowatts. So let's say you charge it full 75 times 2 cents.
About 50?
About 50, yeah.
So we're talking about $1.50 to fill up your tank versus, $30 to $50 on average.
Yeah, so it's definitely a money saver.
Yeah, that's like a 99% savings almost. Yeah, I mean, you just have to do the math sometimes, right? And it's just glaringly obvious.
Yeah, like you said, it's cheap. It's cheaper to charge my car than to buy a gallon of gas.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's really important for potential EV buyers to remember. I think you mentioned it. We talked about it. Total cost of ownership is really important.
Yeah, and we couldn't finish up with questions unless everyone's exhausted.
No, I think we're good. It does look like we had some Janet join us. Thank you, Janet, for joining and interacting and talking. And it sounds like there's a lot of good stuff out there. Thanks for showing your contact info. So if you guys do want to reach out to Frank, you got his phone number, his email. He even put out a code out there. If you're going to buy a Tesla, hook him up. And you can do the same once you buy your Tesla. But, I wanted to thank you. Do you have anything else on your end, Frank?
Just I was gonna answer a question real quick about the new batteries. No, I think that's anything made from May of this year onward. I think from what I was reading, the new batteries. But yeah, that's it for me. I feel like we have been educated a little bit because that's the biggest thing. I think people need to just learn more about it, and then they won't be so turned off by it.
Sure. Great. Well, again, this is part of our National Drive Electric Week festival that we would normally have, but instead we turned it to a virtual series this year. But our third annual event will be next year. Again, this is a 1-week event every single year, typically at the end of September, early October. But, you know, again, we will have 2 more speakers again on Sunday. And if you want to reach out to Frank, again, his contact information is right here on the screen. We'll post this video later today, but, you know, thanks for joining Eco El Paso. Again, thank you, Frank, for joining us. I really appreciate your perspective and breaking some of this stuff down. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, reach out to Frank, reach out to Eco El Paso, and we will talk to you all again sometime soon.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you. Take care.